Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. Just excited to have another one, and we'll squeeze another episode in here before the end of the year. As I mentioned, trying to get as many episodes in this month with the good interviews that we have lined up. So this will be our last. We'll wrap up 2020. Hopefully be able to put this year behind us. Hopefully 2021 doesn't have a kiss of death like 2020 had. So, Another good interview tonight, and tonight we're talking with Matt Duncan of 3D Farms of Judsonia in Arkansas, and it's exciting to hear his expansion. He kind of hit the ground running in 2019 and is grown exponentially from that time, and it looks like 2021 he's hoping to grow even more. So we're going to dive right into his conversation, and then I'll catch you guys near the end. Give me, if you would, give me a summary of your operation, kind of a 40,000 foot elevation of what you've got going on there.
40,000 foot.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I guess we started early 2019 is when we started this operation. I'd been talking about it for 2 or 3 years, and finally just I went and bought the pigs and built the pen while they were living in the trailer for the few days, you know. And we started with 6 pigs on a couple thousand square feet, just real small, and it's kind of progressed. We was processing 2 to 3 hogs a month, and eventually we built up just a little bit, and I guess probably last fall we started doing a lot of custom shares and stuff, half and whole hogs and such, and that's when everything really started getting bigger. So we opened up our land. We started running a lot of high-tensile electric fence. You know, they went from a couple thousand square feet, and right now they're on about 15 acres. I think that first year we processed about 25 or 30 hogs, and we've done just a little over 100 this year so far.
Oh, wow. All right. Now, in 2019, when you started up, I was looking at some of the information on your farm. When you started in 2019, was that just with hogs, or that was the entire thing? Because you do cattle as well, right?
Well, we actually started cattle farming the winter of 2014.
Okay.
My grandpa, our family owns about 700 acres up here in the hills, and he rented me out about 80 acres, and I decided to buy some mama cows. Started with 20 mama cows on this 80 acres, and once we did that, we signed up for the EQIP program through the NRCS to get our pasture rotations, start our pasture rotation, help fixing the soil and everything, because this farm that we're on, it was just dog poor. It was just, soil was poor, wouldn't grow anything. It barely grow any grass in the summertime. And so we went to the NRCS, had them help us out. We ran about probably close to 1.5 miles high-tensile electric fence. We put in about a half mile of water line because this place had no water on it at all when we got it. And we started with the cattle, and then we started integrating the hogs in. Luckily, we were just getting into the hogs when we started the EQIP program, so they were able to work with us, and we made our electric fence kind of dual purpose. It's 4-strand where it's tall enough to keep the cows and calves in, and we also have two lower wires to keep all the hogs in too. So.
All right. Yeah, that's great. My goodness. So what made you decide in 2019 to get into hogs?
Well, I raised up in high school. I showed some hogs, and I just loved it. I love being around the hogs, being around a different kind of agriculture than what I grew up with. My grandpa had 6 broiler chicken houses, and that kind of commercial farming is the way I grew up, and I never really was too big into that. So the hogs was kind of a thing. It took me back to where I was in high school, where I really liked growing the hogs, and I was also able to kind of fit that niche market of pasture-raised pork that was just very lacking in our area.
Yeah. All right. So are you a farrow to finish, or you do feeders, or what's your setup right now with your pigs?
Right now, I'm kind of transitioning into doing a small breeding herd on my place. For the most part, I am wean to finish is the way I do it. A good friend of mine, Corey Davis, he lives about 4 miles from me, and he started raising some registered Berkshire hogs, and he needed a place to go with his kind of cold hogs, nothing good enough for breeding stock.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where my, the pigs come from. He does all my farrowing as of now.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's convenient to be just down the road from you and to be able to have that source.
Oh yeah. We've been friends for close to 15 years now, and he just kind of had an itch to want to get into the hog business, and I told him I'd try to take as many as he wanted to let go of.
Yeah, excellent. So you'd mentioned a little bit about the land you're working right now. In that part of Arkansas, is that fairly flat? Did you have some infrastructure in place already, or did you kind of have to start from scratch there?
We had near zero infrastructure in place. All the fences were put in the 50s and 60s, and they were rotten. Luckily, a couple of our neighbors had put in some new barbed wire fencing and perimeter fencing on their place, which adjoined our property. So we had good fence on probably about half of this farm. I had to go in and put in barbed wire on most of the rest of it. We have two 40-acre tracts. We're a quarter mile wide and a half mile long. And it had about 3/4 of a mile of new fence, and we come in and put about 3/4 of a mile of new fence in ourselves. In hindsight, I wish we would have went in with some electric then, but when we put in our new fencing, we wasn't really looking at any kind of rotational grazing or anything like that with the cattle or hogs. So,
yeah.
We've had the fence go in with the offset electric wire. That way we could get power around our whole place.
Yeah, good deal.
But as far as our terrain, we're right at the foot of the Ozarks here. Just 10 miles to the east of us is Arkansas Delta rice and bean country out there, and we're just right here in the hills. I don't know what our elevation is, but as far as elevation change from one side of the property to the other, we're probably at about 100 feet of difference in elevation.
Yeah, that's a decent amount over that course. That's about where we are here. Of course, we're not. I think ours in some places it happens in about get 100-foot elevation change in about 20 feet of distance.
Yeah, no, we're not quite that bad. For the most part, we're fairly flat, but it just kind of works out because we're on top of a hill, but our family's ground is kind of underneath the hill, and they're probably 200 foot below us, just right here in a creek bottom. So.
Yeah, interesting. All right. So what made you? Well, I kind of answered that question, I guess. But looking at the Berkshire, did you go with that breed simply because Corey was taking care of that for you down the road, or is that just happened to line up well with what you wanted already?
It was pretty much because that's what Corey wanted to do. If I had my choice of hogs, it would probably be a Duroc, maybe crossed with a Berkshire or a Hampshire or something like that. But the Berkshire produces these Berkshire that he's raising is just, after doing it for about 6 to 8 months, I guess I've been raising these Berkshire hogs, and I'm very impressed with the meat quality of the Berkshire. I'm not sad at all that I didn't go with the Duroc.
Yeah.
Breed or anything like that.
Yeah, I actually started with a Hampshire Duroc mix, and it was a good producer. They're just really hard on my ground. They were definitely rooters, so they definitely tore up a bunch of ground.
Yeah, these Berkshires out here, they're pretty rough on the soul, but I don't have a whole lot of option out here because they're probably within a 50-mile radius. There might be 3 or 4 people raising hogs, and they're just really low quality, barn slop fed hogs,
Right.
And that's not really the direction I was heading.
Yeah. So, talking about your pasture rotation, I assume if you got that 4-strand of high tensile that's electrified, are you using that for backbone fencing and then just using poly twine or something else for your individual paddocks as you move them, or how do you have that set up?
I just kind of moved them into the hardwired paddocks. Everything's split up into anywhere from 3 to 4 acre paddocks. Right now, I kind of have a designated area for the hogs. I'll kind of rotate them between 3 or 4 different spots. When they start getting one place beat a little too hard down, I'll move them to this next area, and then so on and so forth. But as far as I do use some polywire for rotating the cattle and such, but not so much the hogs.
Gotcha. All right. Do you at any time integrate the two together, or do you always keep them separate on the farm?
So far I've just kept them separate. Kind of the first paddock that I moved my hogs into is where I overwintered my cattle at winter before last. I guess it's been last winter, and it was just knee deep in half rotten hay, composted hay and such.
Yeah.
And I was like, boy, I bet them hogs take care of that. And sure enough, they went in there, and that's just like a rototiller. Them hogs getting in there rooting around. They was finding all the grubs and the worms and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And, they just flattened out the old hay piles and stuff. And after witnessing that, that's kind of been my plan. Right now we've just started feeding some hay to our cattle, but I've kind of got it. I'm kind of feeding them in an area that I'm able to run my hogs into afterwards this spring, and kind of take care of that and let them help compost out that organic matter of the hay that's left over.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that model, and that's something Joel Salatin does, obviously, but he does under his barn. But that similar concept is wherever your cattle are overwintering, have whatever's left behind be taken care of by the pigs, and then of course you not only get that cleaned up, but you get some incredible compost in the process.
Right, and we have a bad problem with pig weeds down here, and especially where we overwinter the cattle, the pig weeds really seem to come up in the late spring, early summer, and I'm not sure why they call them pig weeds, but I'm kind of thinking it's because the pigs just love them. They'll come down and just mow down every little pig weed before they get big enough to put a seed head on.
Yeah, wow.
That's really beneficial. We haven't sprayed any kind of 2,4-D or such on our pastures in the last couple of years, just because, or this last year anyway, because the hogs kind of help with weed control as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff they'll eat that cattle will leave behind for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when it comes to feeding your hogs, what are you doing for a feed ration, or have you settled on something particular, or are you kind of still testing that right now?
I have kind of played around with it that first year. I've really come up with a really good ration that I've kind of formulated myself. At first, I was having a local feed mill mix just ground corn and soybean meal, and we were adding some vitamins and mineral and salt and such to help complete that ration. And I started doing a little research on different minerals and stuff like that. And it's been kind of hard to get a really good pastured pig premix, because for one, a pig's going to get a lot of its minerals and stuff out of the ground. Something they're not going to get in the barns on concrete and slat floors and such. So we don't worry about so much the mineral. It's just trying to get a good mix with the protein and energy content, because I'm not really set up just yet to run different group pigs. Like up until 2 weeks ago, I had over 70 head of pigs, and they went from 12-week weaning pigs all the way up to 300-pound butcher hogs, and they were all on the same ration.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, so you've got a large group that you're moving through all at once.
Yeah, we're steadily in the last couple of weeks. We've been working on kind of doing these transition pens where we might rotate every 4 weeks on down the line until they get to just a main finish pen at about 180 pounds, and let them finish out on the same feed.
Yeah.
Because I feed about a 15% protein feed, and soybean meal is the main. That's where we get our protein from, is the soybean meal. So we get all the amino acids and such that they need to grow. But 15% is really too high for them finishing hogs over 200 pounds. They're kind of bypassing a lot of their protein.
Yeah.
And 15% is just a little bit low for them. That's coming out of the weaning pen at 60 and 70 pounds.
Yeah.
So they're not, they're putting on too much fat cover too early, and it's really they kind of struggle to get the meat put on their bones, so to say, in a timely manner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But as far as our feed, we're right here in the middle of rice country. We have a couple of rice processing plants, and we actually get. I'm working with another guy here in the area. He goes down to Little Rock and gets. It's pretty much minute rice. It's been boiled and then dehydrated, but they might have something go wrong in the plant where there might be a little washer or something go in a 10-ton batch, and they've got to throw the whole batch away. So I've actually been grinding a lot of this boiled rice into my rations now that I've got my own feed grinder and stuff.
Yeah, that was a thing I had on my list there. I was looking on your Facebook page and saw your grinding mill there and how you're able to roll right up to your drop feeders and feed them directly. That really saves a ton of time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And having my own grinder, I can keep all my feed. I'm touching every aspect of my feed. I know exactly what's going in it at the feed mill. They might or might not do exactly what you want. They could overrun by 10 or 15% on corn, and your protein could be low, or they could put too much soybean meal in there, and be way high and such. And since we're just that's another quality control that we have our hand on as far as feeding, and it's also going to help as we do these different pens where we're transitioning each 4 to 5 weeks, where we can give each pen a different ration. We can do that, mix up a half a ton and take out their weekly to them. That way they keep fresh feed, and they're not, we don't have to get a 2-ton minimum from the feed mill to put out there and let it go stale on them in the month and a half that they might not eat it.
Yeah. So are you grinding that on demand, or are you storing that somewhere else, or do you just keep it in your grinder?
I'm grinding it on demand, really. About every 2 weeks, I'll come in and I'm feeding my cattle as well. I'm fattening up some cattle this winter for custom quarters and halves and such that customers have bought. So I kind of do enough feed to last me 2 weeks. I put them in these 1-ton bulk feeders out here in the pig pens, and then I have a 3-ton bulk feeder for my cattle. And about every 2 weeks, I have to go in. So I mix feed about every 2 weeks. We keep soybean meal on hand, we keep corn on hand, we keep rice on hand. So really it's just a matter of picking it up with the front end loader and weighing it out and running it through there, and then we can have our feed when we need it.
Yeah, man, that's good. That's a good setup. It's nice having all those controls, like you said. They're on hand. Yeah. So you said something there that sticks in my mind that I wanted to ask you about, and obviously we're the Pastured Pig podcast, but we've talked to a lot of people, and there's a lot of discussion and the benefit of having that polyculture. The fact that when it comes to selling product, that you've got beef available, you got pork. How has that worked out for you? When you added pork to your beef operation, did that kind of round out customers? Did you find that those two work well together, or do you have to do two completely separate marketing strategies with them?
Well, actually, my pork operation come before the actual beef operation. Up until probably the first of this year, my cattle operation was just a cow-calf operation. I would sell them at weaning, and that's as far as I would raise them up as far as the calves and stuff. And first of this year, I started playing around with keeping some of the calves, and I fattened them up, and that beef just started flying off the shelf.
Yeah,
I couldn't keep it, and it was a lot of my pork customers that I'd already built over the last year. Ever since this, the start of this COVID pandemic, with that meat shortage that we had back in March or April.
Yeah,
and I've had a couple of neighbors here close to me that started doing the USDA inspected beef as well. So I was kind of the first one to start doing that here, and then they trailed in behind me, and their operations are much larger than mine is. So I've kind of let that beef go on the back burner because no one else is doing the pork.
Yeah. that makes sense to obviously go where the demand is there. Yeah, there's no doubt that this year has made things different and interesting, and it's kind of tough to gauge exactly how it compares to years in the past or how it's going to compare to trends you see at the beginning. But how have you been able to manage COVID this year with processor dates and demand and all that stuff?
Well, as far as the processing dates, I work with a really good processor. He's up in Van Buren. It's Key's Butcher Shop, if anyone's in the area that might be interested. But he really takes care of, for the most part, his USDA customers. As they were starting to book up, with everyone started calling in. They went and bought a calf and wanted to fatten them up and stuff to keep in their own freezer, And of course, you know how it is. It's nationwide. Processing dates are very, very slim. And I was up there. I try to keep dates scheduled about 6 months out. Before all this happened, I could probably call about 2 weeks ahead of time.
Right.
And if I had like a sow go down and that we were going to cull and needed to get rid of her fast, we could call and schedule her in and get her ground up into sausage if we wanted to do that. But I went up. I guess it was about April. I picked up my first load of the year, because the farmers market runs from April to October, and that seems to be about 3/4 of my market right there at the farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Man, you need to go ahead and schedule some dates because they're filling up." And so right then I scheduled all the way up. I guess I scheduled up until January 31st back in April, and I didn't even have pigs on the ground yet.
Right. Yeah.
And we were already scheduling. I was like, crap, I don't think this is a very good idea. There's a lot of variables that can happen in 8 or 9 months.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But so far it's worked out. And anyway, as I was getting back to the processor, he kind of takes care of the USDA customers, because he had already had several dates booked when I had already planned on having some finished hogs that I hadn't booked yet, and he was able to kind of squeeze me in and get me in that way. So processing dates, yeah, they're kind of hard to get right now, but having a good relationship with your butcher really helps.
Yeah, that does, and that can't be stressed enough. When you've got that two-way street there, you got the trust on both sides, then that helps you eliminate some of those crazy variables that we're encountering right now. You made a comment about scheduling out. I had to do the same thing. I had to book dates for hogs that hadn't even farrowed yet, and it's like, okay, I have absolutely no idea how many are going to come in this litter. And of course, what's going to be viable and what's going to grow out is you're just throwing darts at the wall.
Yeah, and there's other USDA processors. I think there's 2 others in the area here. There's 3 in the state. 2 of them's up in northwest Arkansas, and one of them's kind of closer to west central Arkansas. And I called them a few months ago just about trying to schedule in some that I wasn't going to be able to schedule in with my main processor, and they're already scheduling into like spring of 2022.
Wow.
And
that's frustrating.
My processor, he said that he's not going to book any further than 6 months out. So I guess he kind of sees where us farmers are the same way. He said that as soon as he starts booking for the next 6 months, he'll call over all of his regular customers and kind of chat with them and see what's going on.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think, and we've discussed this with some on the podcast before, but I think there's going to come a point when this settles down and the demand is going to shift again, and I think there's going to be a lot of processing dates that are canceled. So it's one of those things. How heavy do these processors front load and anticipating this wave ending, or are they just trying to make as much hay as possible while the sun's shining?
Right.
Well, speaking of hay, that was one other thing I want to transition to. So looking at the income streams on your operation there, you'd said in your notes that you all have a a summer hay operation. So how does that incorporate into what you're doing?
It doesn't so much incorporate into what I'm doing, other than it helps pay the bills in the summertime.
It's all about cash flow, isn't it?
Yeah, because I still work full time. I drive a 18-wheeler big truck about 4 days a week, and that's my main income, and everything. It's all about that side hustle. And in the summertime, I can kind of stockpile some of that cash that I make from the hay business, and it kind of helps to prolong out through the winter, and it pays for my feed bill through the winter, really.
Yeah. Now, is that something you're cutting off your 80 acres or other land?
Oh no, we do some hay for ourselves, but we don't sell any hay. This is just strictly custom hay. We'll pick up customers. They might have 40 or 50 acres that they need cut and baled for their own cattle, but they don't have the equipment, so we'll go in and custom cut and bale for them.
Oh, I see. Okay, I understand. Yeah, so you guys are a roving equipment operation that goes around to different sites to do.
That's right. That's
Interesting.
right.
All right.
We try to stay within about 15 or 20 miles here from the farm, just for ease of it.
Yeah. Now, do you do some of that just for cash, or do you do some where you trade for product for your own cattle?
I have done some trading. There's one small cattle producer. He runs about 40 head down here, and I've actually traded for a couple of cow-calf pairs, and put the mama cow out in the pasture, and it's time to wean that calf, and that's actually some of the beef that I'm processing this winter for customers. So it kind of comes full circle. It all works out pretty well.
Yeah, very good. Well, Matt, as far as looking forward, what do you see? What's the growth plan? What's the 5-year? If you could look down the window there, 5 years ahead, what would you like to see your operation be doing?
Oh gosh, in 5 years, I never was very good at that long-term planning. So, I'm lucky to get by 2 months at a time. But we'll start in the next year. I'm hoping to do about 20 hogs a month is kind of my short-term goal in the next year. And, if I can get 20 hogs finished and marketed out, that's going to bring me in off the road where I can do this full-time.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
And, and once we start there, sky's the limit. If the pork market really picks up for us out here, I could see 1,000, 1,200 hogs a year. It's just, it might be a few years out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one thing I meant to ask you, and what you said there reminded me of that. So, what are you doing on farm right now for storage? Do you have walk-in freezers, or are you just turning your product that fast that you don't have to worry about holding on to it?
Right now, I'm kind of moving it so fast. But in the summertime, spring, summer, early fall, I can move it to the farmer's market. This time of year, it's kind of stagnant as far as retail sales. And that's why I do more custom half and whole hogs for customers.
Yeah.
In the fall, winter, early spring, so I don't really have to. I don't have that overhead. I don't have to keep it in freezers, and I'm not set up with a walk-in freezer just yet. I'm working out a chest freezer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, good deal. Well, all right. Well, I one question I have to ask you that I ask everybody on the podcast, and that is, in your experience so far, what is the most memorable or the most exciting? What do you enjoy the most about raising pigs on pasture?
I don't know. That's kind of a hard question. I don't know how much of it I really enjoy.
Yeah, I hear you.
They can be stubborn. They're a pain in the butt most of the time.
Right.
Just seeing my ground transform. My soil, my farm, how I've been able to integrate these hogs into my operation, and everything just works in unison. I like that, and I really like seeing satisfied customers. That's probably the most enjoyable part of what I do.
Yeah.
I'll have customers come up to me and say, your product is so great. It is so hard to find good farm-raised pork around here. We've got 70, 80-year-old people that says it takes them back to their childhood when they used to raise hogs, on the farm.
Yeah.
They can't find that product anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
And, that's what really lights me up when I hear stuff like
Good deal. Good deal. Well, all right. Well, Matt, if people want to find out more about your setup, where can they find you online?
We are only on Facebook as far as online, and that's 3D Farms of Judsonia on Facebook. We've been looking at getting into the website, the online stuff. It's just right now I'm not very technologically advanced. If I can't do it on my phone, it's kind of hard to do right now. So, but yeah, Facebook is that's our number one online marketing thing. And I don't even know if you call it online or not. Facebook's been a lifesaver for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll share down in our show notes link to his Facebook page. You guys can check that out. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you coming on, talking with me. It was a pleasure hearing about your setup, and man, I pray you have a good rest of the week and a happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, you as well. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
All right, man. Take care. Well, I really appreciate Matt coming on the podcast and sharing his setup and his operation and his plans with us. We wish him nothing but the best. I pray that 2021 is a great year for him, that he could expand the way he wants to. Real quick, I want to do a shout out. This is kind of odd timing wise, because I want to do a shout out for a farm that we did an interview on, but we haven't aired it yet. It's actually not going to air until January. But a gentleman by the name of Patrick Milligan, who I interviewed, he's in New Mexico, and it has a really neat story. He actually, due to COVID, he had to change gears almost immediately. Went from a large DJ business to pastured pig operation. And it's a really great story to hear how he shifted gears and adapted so fast. And we end up getting into a lot of discussion about business and marketing associated with that. So it was a good conversation. But the reason why I'm kind of doing a teaser and a shout out about that is I was very surprised. I went into my office, my marketing office, just today, which is the first time in probably, 3 or 4 weeks. And my business partner, he usually takes care of the things, since he lives close by, and it's a 45-minute drive for me. So with COVID and all the things going on, I'm just not there that much. So I go in and I find a package. To my surprise, I find a package on my desk from Patrick Milligan. And open it up, and it was the coolest care package, get a taste of New Mexico type of thing. So had some of their farm products, their goat's milk soap that they make. Had some salsa, had some seasoning, had some keychains and some magnets, all New Mexico flavored. It was very neat. And man, I was just very humbled and very excited to see that. It's just so cool. I love meeting people, even though I don't get to see them face to face, meeting people on the phone in these interviews, talking to them. Feel like I get to know each of you all a little bit better as we have our conversation. And it's just neat. It's like these little, in my mind, I have this map of the United States where I'm just dropping these little pins of friends that I've met. And it's just so cool to get to know you guys, hear about your setups, hear about the things you're working with, but then just get to know you on a personal level. So Patrick, thanks so much, man. I tip my hat to you. That was an awesome care package. We will be diving into that salsa and that stuff. Actually, as I'm recording this, it's less than 24 hours from New Year's Eve. So we will definitely be cracking that open here in the next 24 hours to enjoy. So I appreciate that. Goodness, if anybody else wants to send me a care package, by all means, see if you can top New Mexico, because he really set the bar pretty high. Well, along those same lines, love to talk to more people. When we get into January, we're probably going to go back to a schedule of every other week, just so I don't burn out and lose all my interviews. I want to try to schedule that appropriately. So I think I've got four or five more in the bag, but would love to have more. So if you want to be on the podcast, if you know somebody that should be on the podcast, or a specific topic we need to address, by all means, go to redtoolhouse.com, use our contact form there, and just let me know what you would like to hear on upcoming episodes. Again, I'm just in awe. I'm humbled by the feedback that you all give. If you want to go to iTunes and wherever you get this and give us a review, give us a thumbs up, that would obviously helps. Rating, actually, you don't do thumbs up there. If you want to do a rating, it helps other people find us, but we're such a unique niche that I'm not expecting millions and millions of downloads, but I'm really excited with what we're seeing. We're getting ready to hit the 50,000 download mark, which is exciting benchmark. So that's all. Thanks to you all. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate the feedback. And I pray you have a happy and prosperous and healthy and safe new year. Take care, everyone.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.